2023 is almost at an end, and so it's time to look ahead to the DC animated films being released in 2024. Justice League: Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, this is an infamous DC story, and it's getting its first feature-length adaptation. It's set to be a Tomorrowverse story that carries on from the events of Justice League Warworld. Now, the plot of this story in the comics is basically the Anti-Monitor destroying not just its own universe, but the entire multiverse. Meaning that all life in the entire universe, and literally everything in the universe, will be wiped out, including the actual planets, the moons, just everything. And so the DC heroes have to band together to stop it. Now, the Anti-Monitor is a creature that has to consume to stay alive, much like Galactus. And it eats planets, moons, peoples, universes, literally everything. And it's neither good nor evil. Really, it's just a hungry being that's looking to devour all life in order to stay alive. At least in most versions of the character. In some, they have made it a bit more of an evil creature with a bit more incentive. And this is one of the most important DC comic events ever written, and it led to many other crisis-level stories throughout the years. Now, it was already adapted by the Arrowverse, and to be honest, I thought they did a pretty decent job of it on the whole. I mean, they really went to town with the multiverse tie-ins. We got little cameos from people from all over the different DC shows and movies. And personally, I don't think this movie will be as good, especially since there is very little setup. We basically just have a minute and a half or so at the end of one film, and that's it. But hey, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe they will do a pretty good job of it. And being animated, it means they can really go to town on all the different effects, the fights, and even just have tie-ins with characters that they couldn't get for the live-action version. Now, one very positive thing about this film is that it is just part one of 3, meaning there are going to be 3 Crisis films made. And the reason that's good is because it's a very large story, and hopefully spreading it out into several pieces will mean that we'll actually get a decent version of it. And part 1 is set to be released in January of 2024, which means the second part could be out towards the end of the year. We don't know for sure as nothing has been confirmed, so it may be in 2025. The third one though would of course be coming out in 2025. There's really no chance of them being able to get all 3 done for next year. Batman Azteca Choca de Imperios. Sorry if I said any of that wrong, and sorry if I pronounced any of the other words in this wrong. It's not my first language, and I only speak English, so I'm not really good at the pronunciations. Now, this movie is going to be a reimagining of Batman, and it's planned for release on the HBO Max streaming service. In the time of the Aztec Empire, Julio Cotl, who is a young Aztec boy, experiences a tragedy when his father and the village leader is murdered by Spanish conquistadors. Now, Cotl manages to escape and warns the king and his high priest Joker of the imminent danger. And then, using the Temple of the Bat God as his lair, he trains with his mentor and assistant Azcatzin, developing equipment and weaponry to confront the Spaniard invasion and to protect the Bat God Temple, and of course, to avenge his father's death. He basically becomes the Aztec Batman, as the title kind of implies. Now, I'm a huge fan of revenge stories, and I love the idea of the common man getting revenge on his oppressor, so I do have the most interest in this film over the others at this point, and I'm very interested to see them taking the Dark Avenger of the Night and adapting it into the Aztec mythology. Watchmen. This comic has been adapted a few times over the years, and even though Alan Moore has been against them all, they are once again making an adaptation of the original 12 issues from 1986. And it's set to be an R-rated film, so expect violence and possible bad language, and it's going to be released on the streaming service HBO Max, same as the Batman one. Now, we all know this story, and it's a classic retelling of the hero genre that takes a deeper look into the mindset of heroes and the effects of being a hero, such as Dr. Manhattan being a god, which leads to him feeling alienated and unable to relate to the humans around him, and is of course inspired by the story of Superman, as he is a god living among mortals, essentially. And Rorschach is of course a Batman-inspired hero, and his character is basically the idea of taking a look at what would a person who was like Batman actually be like if the character was real. They remove the playboy charm that doesn't really make sense with the story, and it doesn't go with the obsessive mindset. So instead, we have a Robert Pattinson-like Batman, and he has a dark and disturbing psyche, and he is depressed and lacking in friends, due to the way that he treats people and obsesses over crime, to the extent of not having a life of any kind outside of fighting it. Not to mention the fact that he is also hyper-violent. Now, personally, I felt that Zack Snyder's movie missed the mark on this. Dr. Manhattan did come across this way to me in the film, and they touched on his alienation and his feelings, but not so much with the other characters. So hopefully they'll take a look at the mindset and personalities of the heroes in this adaptation, as that was the whole point of the original comic, and quite frankly, I'd actually like to see that in a film. Merry Little Batman. There is also Merry Little Batman, which will see Damian Wayne fighting off multiple Bat-villains at Wayne Manor on Christmas Eve, and it's supposed to be heavily inspired by Home Alone. Now, it is actually currently set for release on Amazon Prime on December 8th, 2023. So it won't be released in 2024, and the reason I mention it is because the Merry Little Batman is going to be a light-hearted comedy that's going to set up another show called Bat Family, which will be released in 2024. And that show will continue the same story, with Damian Wayne fighting crime in Gotham. And the screenplay is written by Morgan Evans, who also worked on Teen Titans Go. So it's likely going to be a similar style of storytelling as that show is. And Amazon have also bought and renewed for 2 seasons the show Batman Caped Crusader, which is the last Batman series that Kevin Conroy lent his voice to, though with his passing, exactly how much of the show will be voiced by him is unknown. But reports have said that he had already started recording before he passed on, but we'll have to wait and see. And it is set to be released in 2024, so it'll be interesting to see his final animation, along with his final work in the Suicide Squad video game. This could actually be the last year, in fact it almost certainly will be the last year, that we get Kevin Conroy's Batman being released. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing that. And there is also the animated show Creature Commandos, which is set to kick off the new DCU, and the first chapter of it's going to be Gods and Monsters. And it's going to start with this animated show. Now, for those who aren't familiar with it, just think of it as Suicide Squad, but made of monsters. It's pretty much the same really, and I'm not going to bother going into much detail because that's pretty much what they've got planned, and we don't really know much beyond that. Now, the team is also put together by Amanda Waller, who is also getting her own live-action show, which is going to be called Waller. And there is also a second season of Peacemaker, both of which are part of the new DCU, and are set to be released in 2024. But that is of course dependent on the productions, but that is what they're intending to do at the moment. And of course they're both going to be out on HBO Max, which is basically DC's new partner in the future. As for the shows, My Adventures with Superman and Harley Quinn, both have actually been renewed. There is going to be a second season of the Superman show and a 5th season of Harley Quinn. However, whether they'll be here in 2024, well, that's a bit up in the air. It's not so much whether or not they can be done in time, it's more that the WGA and the SAG after strikes, well, they've kind of delayed these things. So it'll either be in late 2024 or in 2025, depending when they can get the shows done in time for. Now, as for live-action DC films, the only one slated at the moment is Joker Folie à Deux, which is French and means madness for two. And the film is set to be a sequel to the Joker film, and is going to be a musical which features Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. Which, quite frankly, sounds utterly insane, but I'm actually quite looking forward to it. After seeing the Joker film, I actually believe this could be as good, as they really hit the mark perfectly with that film, and I believe they could do so again. And I really would love to see a return to the classic camp and goofy, fun-loving Joker, who is also terrifying and hyper-violent. So I'm quite excited to see what this film is like and what exactly they're going to deliver. And of course, we're going to get the new Suicide Squad video game released this year, assuming they stick to their release schedule anyway. And those are all the currently announced DC animated films. I actually think this could be quite a good year for DC animation, as we have got a couple of films separate from the Tomorrowverse. And I must admit that I found that the Tomorrowverse films just haven't been that great on the whole. But the other DC films set outside of it have actually been quite good so far, so I'm more looking forward to those. But which film are you most excited for? And what do you think of the Tomorrowverse? See, personally, I don't like it that much, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to let us know in the comments. And I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.